Our greatest asset here is what has been said over and over again. It is the people. We have to be thinking about the future of Detroit by thinking about the people. And to say that, I want to do it by doing a little analogy, if you will. And some of you, I know many people in this room right now, so some of you may have heard me say this before, so I apologize for reproducing this, but I think it's important. So first, if I invited everyone in this room to a dinner party, and half this room decided they had something else better to do, and the other half decided that they were going to come to my dinner party. So let's say this half had something better to do, and this half came to my dinner party. There's two ways I can respond. First of all, thank you very much for coming to my party. The first thing I could do is complain about all these people that did not come to my dinner party and make your time miserable. And then you'd go back to those people and say, God, good thing you didn't come to the party because all you did was complain about you and we had a horrible time. Or I could make your time spectacular and whatever we decide to do, I don't know, we'll have a great time. And then you go back to them and you say, you should have come to the next party because we had so much fun and so on. Now, scale that to the city of Detroit. We spend a lot of time complaining about the people that leave the city, complaining about the people who are not here, versus celebrating the people who are here, right? So, that's key. So as the video said, look at our square mileage, 139 square miles. Don't worry about how big that is, but look at Atlanta, 132. Look at Portland, 134, and Denver, which is bigger at 153. Hope you can see that. Look at those populations, 432,000, 540, 567 to our 715. 715 is not that bad, is it? That's the key thing to remember here, is that we've been beating ourselves up because, yes, we started at a higher population and gone down, but we have to think about celebrating the people who are here. No one is going to come, no business is going to come to Detroit. They don't see the businesses in Detroit supported through whatever mechanism. We have the same thing with residents. So I like to focus on Atlanta, maybe because it has even a smaller population, but just think about these two cities. That really the sense is of we can have a great city at 715. So tonight, though, is about talking about where we've been and sort of beginning where we're going. And I'm going to do that relatively quickly through a series of frequently asked questions, if you will. I'm just going to go through them one at a time. That's sort of what we hear always. Now, I'll begin by saying that, yes, I'm with the Detroit Collaborative Design Center, and to be perfectly honest, in about October, November, when we really got more and more involved, people looked at me and said, why are you working on this project? Because you are going to really hurt your institution, hurt your design center by taking on this project because the trust was so low, because the enthusiasm is so low. We're taking it on for what you've been hearing. We believe that together this is going to happen. But I'm going to be as honest as we can. We came to help learn from the successes and maybe the not so successful events last year and build from them, and that's hopefully what we're going to be talking about. We've already begun for a few months now. So the first one is, what the heck is Detroit Arts Project? Many in this room are very engaged, so you may know the answer to this. But it started as a citywide set of strategies for Detroit's future. It will not design the neighborhoods. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that means in a bit, but the second part. The first part, it started off to be citywide strategies. First thing was, we heard this. How can we think about the future if our street lights don't work today? Right? And Green Acres, the first prioritized thing was streetlights, right? We know that in everything. Safety, how can we think about the future if today is not being addressed? So, what occurred was, as you probably know, in July, we made 2 tracks. The first track, the short-term actions, which several neighborhoods is in a demonstration area called the short-term actions. And that is to deal with the current needs of Detroiters today. And then there was a long-term planning, and that is dealing with Detroit's future. and build from the short-term actions, that's for sure. But we're here to think about how do we make sure that the work done today actually has a future? How do we move forward? Second question is, what's the mayor have to do with it? Where does the mayor lie in this? Where's City Hall? First is, yes, the Detroit Works was initiated by the mayor. The short-term actions is within the mayor's office, and the long-term planning is now outside the mayor's office. Done very clearly. If we're to look towards the future, we need to be doing this as a community, or sets of communities together working to move this forward. So that was distinctly made. That short-term cities are very good at doing short-term and sort of thinking there, and we are being sort of charged with looking beyond the short-term. But let's pause for a minute, because if there's anyone not thinking this in this room, my next thing, I'm wondering what rock you've been under, and that is the consent agreement, right? We're going to be talking about all of this, so let's pause and talk about that for a second. So, how does that influence? If this is going to be a process that continues beyond the short term, how will that affect what we're doing? That's key to our work. First, actually I was just in a meeting, a couple of you were in this meeting, where Kirk Lewis just said the long term is something that is sort of akin to having a vehicle without a steering wheel. If you cannot be thinking about the future, any short-term actions that are done will be worthless, if you will. So there's a sense that what we're doing has to happen anyway. But there's also a key thing. Our funding, the work that we're doing, is not at all funded by the city. So so whatever cuts or things happen, we're independent from that. So with that, then you might ask, well, who the heck is paying for this, all this work? And so here are the foundations that are paying. The civic engagement is being paid for by the Ford Foundation. The technical team is being paid for by Kresge and Kellogg Foundation. The Knight Foundation is paying for something that just came to us by if you will, a lucky opportunity. The Knight Foundation is funding a digital gaming, thinking about the future of cities through doing digital or online games. And so they heard what we're doing was the Detroit Works, and they said, well, is there a way to align these together? And we said, well, we do not have the time and funding to be focused on that. We want to do it, but we cannot be focused on it. So they said, well, we will align that to happen. So they've come in, and you will actually there are opportunities starting in May to get online. We'd love for you to be involved with that as well. But that has been funded by so it is part of the civic engagement, but happened actually fairly late in the game. We're going to be launching it in May. So I want to quickly go back to that and say that our work is key. And whatever happens, whether it's, we all are disappointed that this has to happen, and it has happened. But we have to say, okay, whatever happens, we still have to be thinking towards the future. So, let's get back to what's the mayor have to do with it. Essentially, we've been dubbing what happened until July Detroit Works 1.0. And then there was the short term started, and then the long term started in December, and we're calling this, if you will, the Detroit Works 2.0. What I'm going to show here is essentially, the next slide is going to get to showing what actually has happened primarily within the long term. And to get there, this is probably also going through your mind when you look at these dates and saying, well, what's taking you so long? Why can't you just get it going? Well, maybe to start addressing that, we have to ask this, is what did they do last year? Because I don't think that's been so clear of what happened last year. So we want to think, well, let me first ask questions. Is it clear what happened last year? No. Okay, good. I want to make sure that I'm not the only one thinking it wasn't so clear. So we want to talk about that and show at least a little bit of that. So as the green bars represent, this is for the long term, because I want to say focus, we want to say focus on that. In September, when Detroit Works launched, this line represents the technical teamwork, which are the urban designers, the landscape architects, the economic developers, the public land folks, a variety of different people. And this is the community engagement line. The technical team worked from September until December, 4 months. Then there was a long break until November 2011. I don't think this was very clear at first. There was a regrouping phase, which I'm going to get to why that regrouping occurred. Then the civic engagement piece went, and it went beyond that, thinking that this technical team will get back up and running, and it wasn't technical team front, it was that this regrouping was going. So, okay, we need to now sort of reassess from what we heard and what we've learned. So really what was happening was saying this, let's pause one more time, and I'll come back and explain it after this pause, is that the work we are doing has never been done before. You can say, as the first slide has shown, that we are trying to think about Detroit as a model, we being us, that others will follow, not trying to import other models into Detroit. We have things that are already happening, so how can this be a model that others will begin to follow? We export now as opposed to import. The scale of what we're thinking and doing here, that all of you are doing, has not been done before. So we're going to have success, and we're going to also make mistakes in doing that. That's key to this work. Now, it's easy to celebrate success. It's maybe not so easy to celebrate your mistakes. We are saying, wait, we did, though it might not have been, we're learning from those mistakes, and we are going to make many of them. But here, we listened and learned from what we did last year. So this regrouping now, which now made red, is showing how we actually began to, that regrouping phase is trying to say, whoa, we need to step back, rethink, let's go back and talk and focus on this. So that's what began to happen 4 months ago. Very quickly said, we can't be working the way we have to rethink. The technical team was reorganized, rethink was going, and so on. The community kept going, engagement kept going, thinking that we'll be able to reassess. But that didn't happen so much, and so that stopped right around May or so. And then regrouping occurred. We came in, the design center came in right around here, if you will, as a way to help supplement and work with. We're not the only people, but the first thing that we did was, you might be asking, is Christiane and Poncella talk about process leader? What is a process leader? We wanted to surround ourselves by people who would help define how we move forward. That's key in terms of, instead of one person or one organization saying this is what process should be, engagement process, it's many people doing that. So, and keep rippling that out further and further. These meetings have been designed by many people, not by us. So this regrouping was trying to find a way to reassess, learn from what we did. But we're still going to make mistakes. So we want to make sure that that's my biggest fear is that we don't make them over again. It's the cliche comes back to think here, that we just don't want to make them again. The key here is to say that no, that from working together, that won't happen. And this doesn't mean that tonight is going to be perfect. I'm a perfectionist who understands I'm not perfect, and we're constantly looking and saying, okay, engagement is messy. Engagement, true engagement that's trying to be nimble and work is messy, and we want to make sure we build and learn from the messiness. So, another question would be, are you listening to us? And I would say that, well, I hope I've begun to show that with the short term and long term, that two tracks, though it might not have been clearly stated or as stated enough, is that came from what we heard. All of these things, the community needs, all this work has been uploaded from what we learned into the short term. We're going to continue to push for that. The community engagement strategies have changed. A lot of the work, all the banners that you see up on the wall, there's one on community engagement, and we're trying to show how those are now very different. So you can see from that, I know this presentation can't get into all of that. The one key, there's several points that come to the surface, but elevating the importance of jobs like the video is showing. It's not enough to just say that we can get people to jobs. It's really about thinking, how do jobs in Detroit occur? So it's within the city. So the big difference between Atlanta and its population and Detroit is that access to jobs is different, access to education is different, access to all of those things are different, and we're trying to make that happen here. gain quality of life. We're, through our time, not going to focus on these a little bit. There are banners we begin to talk about that. All of what we talk about quality of life and imperatives. Imperatives are the things we must do. These grew out of last year's work. Listening, we began to say there are some core things that make a person's quality of life comes to core things that ground or make a foundation for a person's quality of life. That is essential to everything that we're doing today. Through this process. They become the metrics. Because the reality is no matter how much work we do, if a person's quality of life does not change, the work is for nothing. It's about improving everyone's quality of life. But here's just one example of that, how we did it. Last year, when these meetings occurred, we heard this over and over again. We want to shape how the conversations in our communities occur. So, what did we do? These community conversations have been designed and will be facilitated by the community itself. So people like Christiane, she said she's from this community. Poncella, the people, Kim has been, Tom, been very much a part of making sure, keeping us honest here, and making sure that what we're doing is specific to this community. And I'm proud to say that as Christiane alluded to, tonight's meeting is a little bit different than the other meetings because it's about what's happening and the needs of this community from what we've heard from people that are going to be facilitating and guiding this meeting. That's so important to us. So, coming to the end. What will you have at the end? Essentially, a decision-making framework. We want to, I could spend the entire night just talking about this. I want to be as clear as I can briefly. And that is, and this gets back to the point that we're not designing the neighborhoods. We're designing a citywide set of strategies that can be drilled down into the neighborhoods. So, we will have, at the end, citywide options and strategies for how we are to use our land. Citywide strategies and options on how we will improve our economy, how we will use our open space, and how we will make our city systems more efficient. We will also, though, our public engagement can be better. And this is only the beginning of that. Like I said, we're going to make more. How do we make this further learning from how we move through this? So, what we have again, we're going to meet communities, as we've already done in designing this meeting, where communities are at. Every community is different, and the areas of Detroit are different. So how do we focus on, when we have those strategies, communities will decide how they will fit within this framework and drill down, host this process. So we're here now, starting these community conversations. These are defined citywide ideas. We're going to end May, at the end of May, and then we will come back again periodically until August to define, okay, what is that citywide? And we'll come back and test we'll have a draft and we'll come back and test those ideas and come back and forth a bit. And then, after that, now it may not be exactly August, you know how things go, it may be September, maybe October, but after, we will then drill down into the communities and say, okay, design and implement with the communities. So this will not say that this is going to happen in this neighborhood or in this neighborhood, not at all. It's thinking about the citywide vision, as Christiane was talking about. Who will use this framework? All of us. We have to. And I'll get to the punchline on that for a second, but nonprofit development organizations, faith-based organizations, businesses, government, everyone needs to. And I like this diagram. It shows that Detroit's community is made up of many people, and actually oftentimes people don't live on the edge. They live in multiple places. They live in the intersections. So if Detroit's community is made up of all these different things, then all these different people and organizations need to be the ones that implement and make this happen, and will live with all of us. Because this is key. We don't want this to happen. For this to not just sit on the shelf, it needs to live beyond City Hall. Yes, there's portions it can, but it has to live beyond City Hall. It's got to live with all of us. And that's why it's actually outside City Hall now. And it needs to continue and build upon that. Who are we working with? The technical team. Our series, our local partner is Hamilton Anderson Associates. You'll be hearing a bit from Dan Kincaid tonight. Tony Griffin, the Center for Community Progress, the Institute for Competitive Inner City. There's plenty of information on our website, or we can give you some other information on who these people are. I can spend another night on each one of them. Our civic engagement partners, variety of different partners here on the list. It goes actually on for 2 pages, and how we are engaging them, just to go back to everyone from Moses Arise, CDAD, DWEJ, Michigan Environmental Council, MSU, Extension, Young Nation. We're trying to get youth all the way through to seniors and so on engaged in this process. And then, okay, so what have we done so far? The banners begin to do that, so I'm just going to point over to the banners. I wanted to focus on 2 things and I would be complete. And that is, I would argue that much engagement that's happened in the past has been focused on thinking that community engagement equals meetings and events, just like what we're doing here. But as you will notice in the banners, we've done more than just meetings and events like this. They are key. The meetings and events are just a vehicle to do what? But to establish a relationship. True engagement is about relationships. That's why these are not called community meetings, they're called community conversations. A conversation is when you start having a relationship with someone. And that's what we're really trying to do here. So we've done 2 things, and again the banner in the other room begins to show this, is that we've done what we've called random acts of engagement and organized meetings and events. We are having some of those, like I've said. Some of these organized, we've been to meetings all around the city, that's besides ones we've organized, that we want to be a part of your agenda, not just you always coming to be a part of our agenda. So we've gone to other meetings and be a part of that agenda and so on. And we're open to continuing that for sure. But these random acts, there's playful things that have been done over there. Since December and March, our reach has been that we've gotten to about a reach of 30,000 people from between December and March, and we've had meaningful conversations. So our reach means that we've been able to get information, talk, and get out there, but very, very lightly, if you will. Meaningful conversations has been approximately 4,000 people in a 4-month period. In designing where we're going, this has been the balance we've been trying to do. How many people have been thinking in this first one? I'm tired of planning, and nothing happens, right? Okay? I'm with you, I believe that, and please stop talking and start doing something. I mean, that's key, right? But there's also, a lot of people are telling us this, no one has talked to me yet, right? So, how do you do both? That's what this process has been trying to do, is really begin to say both of those and sort of fill in the gap, because there's a lot of people who fit here, or here, or here. So our process has been trying to do both of that. And it's hard to do all of that, right? But they're trying to do both. We're going to make mistakes in it. But really, we have a lot of this, and many of us in this room, that's why it's designed the way it's been the focus on the first one. But there are still people here, and we're trying to do both. So, please start reading. There's a banner that helps that. We got postcards and the resource table that gives you all that. We're essentially right here between directions and strategies, and we're going to help define those strategies. What most of the realities has been was looking at and gaining all the information from analysis and looking at what's existing that occurred from the community engagement last year and so on, and from the beginnings of 2012, building from that to start creating some ideas that then we can begin to work with in terms of strategies. So the part that we really need to dive down with you is where we are here. And it's we're in that sort of line between. You can explain more in that, and we won't take any of that information with you. We have designed 3 conversations. And after this, we're pretty much done. So thank you for bearing with me here. The first is tonight. We're essentially giving you an update, which you have. And I know it's still cursory, but if you didn't want to have a 2-hour presentation from me, we just wanted to at least give you enough, and then we can start answering and so on. And I'd be happy to meet with you afterwards. And then we're going to begin sort of quality of life stuff and so on. There's going to be presentations that we made and so on. This is more general of how this is going to cross everyone. Yours is slightly different. The localizing local assets, you've done so much of that already, so it's being presented back, so it's part of the presentation. What this is trying to show is that meeting 2 and 3, each one builds upon the other. And though You may come to this one and not be able to make this one. It doesn't mean you can't come to the third one. It means that we have information ready for you to go that can fill in the gap. But if you now say, wait a minute, like the dinner party analogy, you know, the meeting wasn't so bad. Please come to the next one. They can be caught up very quickly. I hope that you think the meeting, that it wasn't so bad, if you will. We hope that we can begin to sort of get people to come now here, and we can update them through whether digitally or analog. We're going to have stuff on the walls here that people can come and read here. We can email, we can do whatever it takes to get information out. Now I want to end with this. This is one of our initiatives, and I'm only going to let it run for about a minute or so. We've initiated, part of the long-term planning, a series of oral histories. These oral histories are talking about people's commitment and position in Detroit. We're calling them Detroit stories, if you will. And this one's from Bernice Jamerson. In fact, the Oral Histories Project is happening here right now. They are, so if anyone would like to be a part and have their story told, being told a story, you are more than welcome to have that. We can direct you to where it is.
My family came to Detroit in 1941. My father had a job working in Detroit. So that was the reason that we relocated, and I was 9 years old.
Where did you come from?
Smithland, Kentucky.
And what neighborhood did you move to in Detroit when you came here?
On the Lower East Side, which was called Black Bottom. Well, it was predominantly people of color, and it was a crowded section of the city where people were able to rent rooms because there wasn't enough housing to accommodate the people that were coming from different parts of the United States. Well, we moved with my grandmother. My grandmother was already living in Detroit, and she was staying in an apartment. I can remember that it was a one-bedroom apartment, and a living room, hallway, and the kitchen. And then my family consisted of my mother and my sister and brother and aunt, and my father had already come.
I want to stop it there, only because you can sort of, if you saw the timeline, she's the stories that go into a lot of depth. She talks about the area. It's really quite a wonderful story there. Each week, we have done about four uploads, if you will. Each week we bring another person or another couple. We had a husband and wife told different stories, and we put them up together. Each week we unveil a new story. It's on its own website. It's on its own. We wanted to live outside of us, but this is sort of what we felt like one of the gifts that give back, if you will. It's about that this is really if our greatest asset are the people of Detroit, then we need to be celebrating the people of Detroit. With that, thank you very much, and we look forward to continuing this conversation.